Who you calling a dummy? We'll find out this week on Motoring 2007.
TSN's Motoring 2007 is brought to you by Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Michelin, a better way forward.
You know, crashes look pretty cool in a crash center, but in real life, of course, it's something we all hope to avoid, but sometimes it's inevitable. And of course, today's vehicles are much safer than ever before, many coming loaded with airbags, which has some people concerned we spend too much time on passive safety rather than driver education. But you know, there is a disturbing trend in today's crash data. Rollovers account for 2% of all crashes, but 40% of fatalities. Well, this week we're at the General Motors Proving Ground in Milford, Michigan, where they have just built a $10 million state-of-the-art crash center with one goal: to help reduce the risk of deaths and injuries in rollover situations.
This is a 38,000 square foot facility which we have added on to our barrier crash test site. And this site will be dedicated to research in rollover collisions. And we will do two kinds of work here. We'll do work that measures the physical parameters of a vehicle during a rollover so that we can write the computer code necessary to deploy rollover airbags and help reduce injuries. We'll also be doing research into injuries themselves, and we will use instrumented crash test dummies. And then we'll look at technologies that might be helpful in mitigating the injuries resultant from internal contact.
We have a $1 million runway that actually tows the vehicle upwards of 47 miles per hour that will allow us to launch it onto the various 4 fixtures that we have. The event that you're going to see today we call the Corkscrew Event, or we reference it as the Dukes of Hazzard. The way you develop airbags is different depending on the event that you're in. For example, a frontal airbag will deploy for like 300 milliseconds. But you want your rollover airbags to deploy upwards of 5 seconds. Because one of the things you're going after with the rollover airbags is part of it is to try to keep the passenger or the driver from ejecting out of the vehicle. So you want the airbag to deploy at a longer time versus a front or a side airbag.
Well, I've been a practitioner either in research or in application of motor vehicle safety for over 30 years. And during that time period, we've seen enormous changes and tremendous advances in the science of motor vehicle safety and what we call the science of automotive medicine. A lot of that advancement has been generated by physical crash testing in places like this.
This building has been 12 months in the making at a cost of $10 million. But it's $10 million of a total of $33 million that General Motors has invested into the safety labs over the last 2 years. It's a 40,000 pound light fixture. There are 1,872 individual lamps at 1,000 watts apiece. That's a $1 million light system that we're demonstrating right here.
We anticipate that we'll run as many as about 150 rollover crash tests here a year. Our current throughput capacity in the barrier site is about 600. So, you know, that gives you an idea of the frequency with which we do these. We do a couple a day. Rollovers have always been a part of the motor vehicle safety challenge, but with the advances in frontal crash safety and in side impact safety, rollovers have become an increasingly significant part of the total number of fatalities that occur here in the United States. Rollover crashes themselves represent less than 3% of all crashes, but more than 40% of fatal injuries are associated with rollovers. Almost all rollover crashes are accompanied by some kind of loss of control. We are expecting, as is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, that the application of electronic stability control, called StabiliTrack by GM, will help reduce the frequency with which rollover crashes occur.
I think we can judge success by looking at the statistics. And the data that we've collected on General Motors products says, yes, we are making a difference.
One step forward, 2 steps back. I'll explain it all later on Kenzie's Corner.
Having earned a reputation for building decidedly decent but affordable transportation, Kia is now setting its sights a little higher. This week on Test Drive, the all-new Amanti. Kia is a company that has come a long way in a very short space of time. When it arrived, it had 2 rather sorry offerings to fill its dealer lots. Today, the lineup has grown to 10 very worthwhile models. The Amanti anchors the top end of the portfolio and takes Kia into the near luxury segment. To compete at this level takes a car that has to be loaded and then some. Here the Amanti succeeds, for the most part. When you slip behind the wheel of this new Amanti, you get exactly what you expect, and that's a lot of luxury, especially if you go with the up-level model. Power sunroof, full leather, very nice infinity sound system, and all the desirable bells and whistles. There are, however, 2 things that are absent. First of all, there should be an optional nav system, and the radio should have a plug-in for an MP3 player. That aside, it is a complete package. Where the Amanti really does surprise is the power and refinement of the drivetrain. The 3.8-litre V6, which is married to a 5-speed automatic complete with a manual mode, churns out 264 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. Mat the gas and the front tyres chirp until the traction control system reins in the ponies. It's then off to the races. To get the Amanti to 100 kilometers an hour takes but 7 seconds, and it turns the 80 to 120 trick in just 5.5 seconds. The nice part is that when at full chat, the engine is smooth and commendably quiet without killing the exhaust note. Large also applies to the Amanti's trunk. Right there, 15.9 cubic feet of storage space. Now the downside is there's no split folding rear seats. There's only a ski pass-through, and that's probably because of those side airbags. That I can accept as a compromise. What I can't, however, is anything that doesn't see sunlight is not finished painted. Now, yes, that's becoming an industry trend. What's not is the fact that they charge extra for paint. If you want anything other than black, $125 for metallic paint and $200 for the pearlized white. As far as I'm concerned, that's a chintzy way of padding the bottom line. Anti-lock brakes are standard fare. Hammer the brake pedal from 100 kilometers an hour and the Amanti comes to rest in just 41.3 meters, which is shorter than its peers. The Volkswagen Passat, for example, needs an extra 3 meters to accomplish the same thing. Right. As is to be expected of something playing in the near luxury game, the Amanti also features a decent electronic control system. The nice part is that it's not overly intrusive when it does finally step in. Now this is the hallmark of a good system. There's a ton of space in the back of this Amanti, plenty of tow room, knee room and headroom, and it's wide enough to accommodate 3 adults in a realistic fashion. There is, however, one thing that really stands out. Standard side seat mounted airbags for the rear seat riders. Now these things, if they're available, are typically optional and even on cars that cost twice as much as this Amanti. The Amanti also gets advanced dual-stage front bags, side seat-mounted front airbags and full-length drop-down curtains to go with those rear bags. As for the ride and handling, the Amanti pleases. Through the pylons, the car bobbed and weaved without feeling like it was about to keel over and play dead. There's also decent feedback from the steering, and the 235/50R17 tyres deliver plenty of lateral grip. On the flip side, this thing cruises the highway as comfortably as any Buick or Lexus. It used to be that affordable luxury was an oxymoron. This new Amanti proves that that's no longer the case. It's got a sweet powertrain, it's comfortable, and it comes with the luxury expected of a car that costs thousands of dollars more.
Michelin, a better way forward.
If we go back some 25 years ago, 30 years ago, and so on, snow tires were big, luggy tires made to have traction in snow. The deeper the snow, the bigger the blocks, the better traction you had. The evolution through the years, mainly through the 90s, is that the tire has evolved from a snow tire to a winter tire. The main difference is that now modern winter tires are not only made to provide good traction in snow, but also excellent traction in ice, in slush, and also including in cold pavement when they're wet and dry. An all-season tire, when the temperature, ambient temperature, reach 7 degrees Celsius and it gets colder and colder, the standard tire starts losing its flexibility. And flexibility is what provides traction. Well, this is a typical modern winter tire. This is the Michelin Excise tire. The first thing that you see is that it's a directional tread pattern, like a V shape, okay? Meaning that the tire has to be installed in a rotation manner with a rotation. The next thing are the grooves, deep grooves between blocks, okay? In a V shape in the case of the Excise tire to help expel water, slush. The other thing that we always mention, which is very important for tractions, are those sipes, these little cuts that you see on each of the blocks, which provide traction in snow, in wet, and when I say traction, I mean acceleration, braking also, which you've got waves, horizontal waves on each of those, and you've got vertical waves also. So they better work open and close when needed for the proper traction, the proper type of pavement you meet. The best reference to know what is a winter tire is to talk to your tire specialists who will tell you which one are good winter tires and which one are just all-season tire.
Probably the toughest part of the job of designing a crash dummy is how do you know what a human would behave like in something like a crash test. Obviously we cannot put real humans in there and get that data. So the data has come from a variety of sources. There have been many experiments on animals. There's been anesthetized pigs and monkeys that have been tested. The pig's chest is very similar to that of a human, so a lot of research has been done on that. There also has been a lot of testing done on cadavers. A lot of the research done in the Air Force and the Navy, they do use live subjects where you've got the healthiest 19 and 20-year-olds in the world, where they put them on sleds and accelerate them, and they use what they call the ouch endpoint. They would take them to the limit of when they said ouch.
You can donate your body to science. Is there any thought of donating your body to the automotive research industry here?
That is, especially in the United States, there are some political ramifications to that. Most of the data I have seen from cadaver testing has been done in Europe. It's been quite a while since I've seen any data from testing done in the United States on cadavers. But I can tell you some people that would gladly accept your body if you'd be willing to donate it to them for research.
As we heard earlier, these crash test dummies are about as close to a living, breathing human being as we're going to get, and they come at a price, about $100,000. But this iDummy, well, it has the latest in technology at a price of just over $150,000. But here's a stat for you. 70% of people who are killed in a rollover crash are not wearing their seatbelt. So I ask you, who's the real dummy? All right, let's head to the Quaker State Garage and join Bill Gardiner.
Brad, you know, it really surprises me because I know we've got a pretty high compliance ratio for seatbelt usage. I've seen the stats for Ontario, it's pretty high, but I guess out of that small percentage of people that don't use them and get into crashes, a lot of them get flung out of the vehicle and ultimately killed. As a matter of fact, just last night, believe it or not, a couple of miles from my house on a major highway, one guy in his car, 40-year-old guy, rolls the car and he's ejected from the vehicle and he's killed. Good chance he would have survived that crash if he'd still been in the vehicle. Now, I was in a heavy crash on the highway back in '99. I got hit in the driver's door by a 48,000-pound bus at highway speed. I was the middleman in a multi-vehicle crash. I got drilled hard enough to kill me, probably should have taken me out, but I was in a real strong vehicle, a full-size GM pickup, and I had my seatbelt on. And I do have to discipline myself to use that seatbelt because I tend to get in and out of vehicles to move them in the shop and back out into the parking lot, etc., without putting that belt on. So I really have to discipline myself to always put it on. And you know what? It's not just the occupants of the vehicle, it's the cargo too. When I was in that heavy collision, all the cargo that I had inside the vehicle and in the back got scattered all over the highway from the hit, even though the vehicle didn't roll over. So it's kind of neat to note that a lot of the newer vehicles, like this Titan pickup that we're using for our long-term tester, pay particular attention to giving you lots of ability to tie down cargo. And you can see on the Titan we've got a great rail system around the perimeter of the box here with these movable cleats. You could shift them around and then attach your tie downs to them to tie your cargo down. They've even got a set of cleats in the floor that allow you to move these cleats off the side rails, remove this filler strip that slides in the floor, and put your cleats in the floor and lock them in. Then you can tie your cargo down. For example, if you had a motorcycle in here, you can tie the motorcycle down to these cleats, secure them with this knurled knob, and then tie it down securely so that it's going to stay put in any kind of maneuvers you make on the road. And in the event of a collision, that cargo is going to stay put. And that's the key, keeping it in one place, because once it gets moving around, it's going to fly out, it's going to do damage to your vehicle, maybe in an emergency stop. If you've got cargo back here that slides forward, smashes into the back of the cab, you could break the windows or bend the front wall of the cab. You'll see lots of pickups where the front wall of the box, is all V'd from cargo smashing into it. So make sure you've got a good set of tie downs, use all these cleats that are designed into the vehicle, and keep your cargo well secured. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardiner for Motoring 2007.
We are the only internationally acclaimed show in North America. There are regional shows, good regional shows, but this is where the media come. And we, year after year, have been told by the manufacturers that they want to introduce their vehicles here in this location because this is where they get the bang for the buck.
Now, technology is migrating down the food chain so fast we can barely keep up. I drove a $15,000 car the other day that had electric heated seats. So the car companies are constantly looking for new gimmicks to try and entice buyers into their products. Back in the early 80s, they started with talking cars. You remember those? Your headlights are on, or your door is ajar, or your payment is overdue. Well, that was just so irritating, it eventually died. But at the same time, they brought out remote keyless entry. Push a little button and it unlocks the doors of your car. When I first saw that, I thought, who cares?
But after you use it for a couple of days, you think, how did I ever get along without this? Now the next extension of that is the so-called smart key. This is a little transponder you carry around. The car recognizes if you're in the vicinity and automatically unlocks the car for you. The problem with that, of course, is that we've been used to touching the door handle to make sure the car is locked, and if you do that, it unlocks the car again, so you're never actually sure whether the car is locked. All right, maybe it's just me failing to adapt to the new technology. But another piece of new technology that I do like is the Onetouch turn signal. You just tap the lever and it gives you 3 flashes, just enough for a lane change on the freeway. Oh, by the way, guys, don't forget, the turn signal is to indicate that you're about to turn, not that you are turning, so give everybody lots of notice, okay? So I find this really, really convenient, except if somebody had described it to me, I would have thought, who cares? The other advantage of this particular feature is that it means you don't tend to leave the turn signal on for mile after mile. As Jay Leno once said, when John Glenn went up in the space shuttle at age 80, everything was fine except he had his right turn signal on for 850,000 miles. But there's the latest piece of new technology. It's the self-parking car. The new Lexus LS has a feature, optional feature. You drive by a parking spot, the cameras measure whether it's big enough for you or not. You push a little button and sit there and fold your arms, and the car backs itself into the parking spot. It looks great on television with those piles of champagne glasses, and it's a cool party trick. But in the real world, well, you know, it takes so long. If it takes 10, 15, 20 seconds to get set up in downtown Toronto, there'll be 9 guys in your parking spot before you even get there. Thanks very much, but like me, when I drive my Hornet up to the high-class hotel, I'll park my car myself. I'm Jim Kenzie.
You know, hopefully with all the testing being done here at the General Motors Rollover Crash Center, we can all avoid this kind of situation. Before we go, just a reminder that our Car of the Year special is quickly approaching, so go to motoringtv.com or tsn.ca. You'll see all our nominees listed for you to cast your vote. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
I think the only thing that might hold it back is the CVT transmission, not because it's a bad transmission, but just because I don't think people generally understand CVT, whereas in a regular car with stepped gear transmission, you get the rev and then the shift. Whereas with this, it holds the revs and it's a different driving experience, and some people might attribute that to unrefinement, even though it isn't once you get used to it.
TSN's Motoring 2007 has been brought to you by Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Michelin, a better way forward.